Hey, Peter.
Hey, man.
Can you play the oldest tune you know?
Oh,
It's the oldest tune you know.
All right. I mean, just off the top of my head.
Yeah. No, Bach. Great. Not that old.
Oh.
Something a little newer than that.
A little newer. Okay.
Yeah.
I got you.
A tune.
A tune. Okay.
Great. Okay. You made it all the way to Beethoven. That's great. But I'm thinking more like 20th century, the oldest jazz tune you know. How about that?
Oh, okay. I got you.
Yeah. That doesn't seem that old.
Oh, it is.
Okay.
You'll see.
All right.
And I'm Peter Martin.
And you're listening to the You'll Hear It podcast.
Music Explored.
Explored, brought to you today by Open Studio. Go to openstudiojazz.com for all your jazz lesson needs. What's up, Peter? How you doing,
What's up? Man, I'm excited, a little bit nervous.
Really?
Because we are talking. First of all, give it up for Caleb Kirby, yourself, Adam Manis.
Well, thank you.
It's a very special guest.
That's right.
Artist. Jamal Nichols at the bass just came in laying it down for us.
Friend of the show, Jamal Nichols here.
Friend of the show, St. Louis's finest, the world's finest.
Filling in for Bob DeBoo. Bob's on a little vacation, so we had to get Jamal in. And that was great, man. Great way to start the day.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm a little nervous because it's that nervous excitement. What do they say? Butterflies in the stomach?
Yeah.
Because we're talking about today who I think may be the greatest improviser ever. Certainly, without doubt, is the most important jazz, to the fundamentals of jazz, the most important artist ever.
Yeah.
One of my favorite musicians. Probably I'm going to give it away a little bit here, probably my ultimate desert island, if you could have one musician's improvise solo with you, just one, this would probably be this person. And so we want to bring the fire and honor this, but I'm super excited. We're talking about Louis Armstrong.
Louis Armstrong, the foundation of the music. Truly, he is the language of the music. And what we'll hear today, we're gonna explore some of those incredible moments that he was so prodigious at throughout his whole life, but especially early in his career. He had so much talent and was just so revolutionary. I think we take it for granted now. Of course we take it for granted now. How could we not? It's 100 years later.
Yeah.
There's no way that we can't take for granted what a huge sea change that he provided to improvisation, to music. It's just incredibly serendipitous. He comes along right as recording technology is picking up. So improvisation can be recorded for the first time, and you hear someone in real time create this new art form for us to explore even this century later. You know what I mean? And we have the full century of it since. And there's no jazz without Louis Armstrong.
Absolutely. And also he came along kind of right at his prime in terms of musicality and his imprint on the music right when radio was really taking off.
Totally.
So
all
it's like
these
the
things coming together.
technology,
Yeah.
And right during the jazz age. Ever heard of it? I
Indeed.
realized from looking at this. So, okay, so let's just sort of set this up because Louis Armstrong had a very long career. He was born in 1901, of course, in New Orleans, famously
That's
in New
debatable,
Orleans.
the year.
Well, no. Apparently, it's definitely 1901.
I remember there was some controversy.
He said 1900. He really attached himself to the July 4th, 1900. And I think it's been.
I mean, he's a showman.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
you got to still tell your story.
That's fun to be. Yeah. He's like, I was born at exactly midnight on July 4th, 1900.
Yeah.
You know?
The greatest dude, like Bob Dylan's backstory and all that stuff. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
But what I decided to do is I have chosen a decade, and I just realized due to jazz pianist math, I might have screwed this up a little bit because
We're not known for being good at math, is what you're saying? I find that insulting, sir.
this is all recordings, specifically solos, both vocal and trumpet, from 1923 to 1933.
Cool.
So that's actually 11 years. Oh,
You're-
look, you
you're
look
a-
stunned in your eyes.
That doesn't seem true. That it's
Anyway,
11
we're
years.
going to call that the decade. We're going to call that the decade. 10 years-ish, 1923 to 1933. And this would have been
Jazz
with
piano.
Louis Armstrong.
Math. That's good.
Right. This would have been like when Louis Armstrong was about 21, 22 years old, up until 31, 32. And, a lot of times we look at artists, we're not saying like Louis Armstrong, it's interesting because he became so much more famous after that point.
Yeah.
He was very famous during that period, but because of like television wasn't really a thing yet, film, he was starting to do a little, like towards the end, we're going to explore some of that.
He had an incredible third act.
Incredible third act,
Yeah.
all the way up to like, a Billboard top chart with Wonderful World, which is not on our list because that was like 40 years later, But this is, I think, during the period where he really revolutionized not only jazz music and not even revolutionized it, just sort of established it, what it meant to be an improviser, coming out of New Orleans with collective improvisation and then becoming the frontline improviser, coming up under Joe Oliver, who we're going to listen to start things out, who was really his mentor.
Yeah.
And what I thought would be fun is if we just kind of looked at the different stages. We're not like a history thing. We're going to screw up some of this stuff. But we're going to screw up some of the math.
No,
history.
we're not. Are you talking about we're not academic level historians or
We are not.
mathematicians? Come
But
on.
what we are
Don't
is
sell yourself short,
We're
buddy.
great at listening and finding the story, I think, in the music. And I've listened to Louis Armstrong music all my life. My aunt and uncle who lived in New Orleans, I remember going as a kid. They were actually friends with a bunch of people that played with Louis Armstrong.
Yeah.
Of course, I play with, the whole lineage of the music. But we're going to start with 1923.
Okay.
That's when our decade starts.
Fun fact, year I was born.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I look amazing.
You look
Go
great,
ahead.
man.
Yep.
The plastic surgery, man. Those trips to Brazil, awesome, man.
I've
a bargain.
been going to Eastern Europe lately.
Nice.
Go ahead.
nice. So we're going to start with 1923. And this is really like kind of coming into this. I broke it down roughly. There's like obviously the New Orleans years when he was coming up. And like there's great stories and that's all well documented. You can hear about that, how he ended up playing trumpet, a little brush with the law. And then he was put into a home for wayward youth.
Come on now.
That happened to have an incredible band director and great instruments.
Yeah.
So that worked out well,
Turns out weirdo kids can play.
That's right. But then when we get to like, 1918, 1919, when he was, 18, 19, up until around this time, 1923, he was playing on the riverboats. That's when he first left New Orleans, first went to Chicago, first came through St. Louis, just a couple miles from here, right on the riverfront.
Yes.
His first interactions with ragtime. I mean, he had definitely heard that in New Orleans because New Orleans was a real cultural hub for music.
Yeah.
In the what do they call the 1910s, the early aughts,
The teens.
the teens,
Yeah.
but a different teens, right?
Yeah.
He would have heard, French. There was a huge French opera house in New Orleans, just a couple blocks from where he grew up. Of course, the honky tonks on Rampart Street, which is where he grew up on Jane Alley, which is right off of Rampart Street. And the honky tonks were primarily playing, when he was little, ragtime music, which of course was a lot of the St. Louis musicians and that kind of sound. So he had a very rich kind of cultural and musical gumbo of things that he heard, and then excellent training on the trumpet. Of course, always known for his incredible technique, his prodigious technique, and kind of work ethic with working out the cornet and then the trumpet, mainly because he mentored under Joe, also known as King Oliver, who was the greatest trumpet player in New Orleans, So really interesting thing in how he mentored under him. So this recording of Riverside Blues from 1923 with King Oliver, basically Louis Armstrong was playing second trumpet with him, and we'll get into that kind of story afterwards. But you're going to hear the great King Oliver, but you're going to hear just the beginnings of a little bit of Louis Armstrong's magnitude, maybe even leapfrogging above in terms of like improvisatory flavor and ingenuity and possibly even revolution and already starting. And that's why I chose 1943.
I love it. Even in the beginning of the music, there's kids coming up, taking our spots.
That's right. That's right.
King Oliver's like, man.
Yeah. And so he'd already been playing on like the riverboats. He like read music really well because he played with, was it Faith Marable's band? And like there was a lot of like kind of sets and reps he'd already had, even though he was only 21 years old. But check this out. King Oliver on top. This is very New Orleans collective improv. King Oliver's Creole jazz, man. So they're jamming here. They're going along. I'm going to skip ahead just a little bit.
Man, amazing. What an amazing feel. Amazing sound. Like polyphony happening.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
now you're going to hear. That's Louis Armstrong right there.
Wow. Yeah, man.
So, like, I don't know if that was a good thing that King Oliver let him do that at the end there.
Wow.
And sorry, I cut it off. There's some great little tag.
It's a great thing, isn't it?
It's a great thing. But this was the thing. This is Louis Armstrong years later talking about King Oliver, Joe Oliver.
Joe Oliver, you know how much I love Joe Oliver, but still no, he did make a statement to live during a conversation.
That was
his wife.
His wife,
said,
Louis Armstrong.
As long as little Louis is with me, he can't hurt me. When she told me that, that did it. And to me, she said, it's all indications that King Oliver's trying to hold you back. I didn't say a mumbling word. Even after she told me, I didn't say nothing. I just split, that's all. Lil spoke, and that was it.
I mean, that's what a young person should be doing.
Right.
You apprentice under someone, and when you are such a prodigious talent, like the syncopation that we just heard there is his gift to the world.
Right.
And something that every musician, I don't care what genre you're focused on, every musician who's learning how to improvise can learn from Louis Armstrong. Like listening to Louis Armstrong, he is a genius at that.
Yes.
I mean, at a lot of things, obviously sound and all kinds of phrasing things, but the syncopation of his language is so gorgeous.
Right.
It's really, really special.
And the thing is, there was syncopation before this with ragtime, with a lot of the New Orleans, brass band stuff. But to bring it in, and there was people improvising before this. And
for sure.
Jelly Roll Moore, there's a lot of controversy because Jelly Roll was like, I was doing that stuff before. I was doing that. We're going to get into some of that.
But the confidence he brings to it is what really sells it. The flavor, the note choices, everything. It's just like when someone truly gets it.
And Joe Oliver, the whole band is killing on that, like we heard. But there's something about the way Louis Armstrong, like he's kind of coming in with a nuance, bing, bing, and like he's just, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit of like looking around the corner. Oh my God, there's this incredible, beautiful garden over there that was going to really become the jazz age. So Louis Armstrong didn't create the jazz age, but I mean, there was no jazz age without him.
Yeah, he's perhaps the most important artist of it. Yeah, and the person who propelled it. To the next level. Yeah. There is levels to this, like, and you can hear
levels.
that there.
There's levels, and we're going to hear by the time it gets to well before 1933. But I mean, it's really just a massive trajectory that he goes on.
That was cool. I had not heard that. That was very cool to hear.
Yeah, so that's kind of, I mean, there's some other things that people say are a little bit earlier, but I think that's his first great, like, where you're like, what? Like, what is that?
Yeah.
You know? And as great as Joe Oliver was, and all the musicians on there, it's like that separation you start. You know, they're all masked. I mean, like this was, and look, Joe Oliver, it hadn't been for Joe Oliver, not only with his mentorship of Louis Armstrong, is there no Louis Armstrong, but he also brought him to Chicago. So he was going on the riverboats. Joe Oliver was well established. Chicago was sort of like Chicago and New York were the recording capitals of the world. But there was also, he had a legendary, on the South Side, they had the Lincoln Gardens. There was, I don't think it was like totally integrated, but there was freedom for Black musicians and artists and audiences that did not exist in New Orleans outside of a few blocks. So like he opened that up, to Louis Armstrong by bringing him, having him play second trumpet with him. But pretty quickly, because of Lil Hardin, who was an incredible pianist that was playing with Joe Oliver as well, who was actually from Memphis, who would later become Louis's wife for many years, as we heard, kind of pulled his coat. And so he ended up going to New York with Fletcher Henderson. But before that, and really, he had already been playing. Sidney Bechet was kind of the other big star besides Joe Oliver on clarinet. So this is from 1924, and this is from Clarence Williams' Blue 5. This is kind of where you start to see the trajectory. So just less than a year later,
I don't know this either. This is great.
Texas Moaner Blues. So he's already
Sidney Bechet.
Now that he's away from Joe Oliver. So a lot of this improv still collective, right?
Yeah.
Played at the same time. We're going to see them start to break away from that, which really opened things up for Louis.
Sidney Bechet.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, so there's already a lot of, you're starting to hear a lot more, but it's still that collective improvisation. So it's not really standing out front and just taking a long solo. Well, nothing could be that long because the 3-minute limit on the 78s. But
that was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then 1924, we have sort of the beginning of the next period, which is really the Fletcher Henderson breakthrough. Fletcher Henderson was huge with a bigger band, was in New York, had the biggest gigs, and was really like doing the whatever they call it, the hot style and stuff like that. 1924, 1925, Louis Armstrong played with a bunch of different people, but came to New York. And this is an example of kind of just a little snippet of what he did. There's some really interesting recordings, and they're super high level, but they're really short solos. But you're starting to hear him getting away from the New Orleans collective improv when you have the big, the big personalities of King Oliver, Sidney Bechet, John, Dodds, and all them. And this is with Fletcher Henderson. Maybe a little bit more of a New Yorkish, sophisticated kind of thing. But the solo, this is Copenhagen, is the name of the song. A little bit of bebop in there. Did you hear that?
Yeah. All of a sudden we're pushed ahead a little bit, it feels like.
Yeah. He's still got the like the blues, but like you're starting to hear the language that's going to come out a couple decades later,
Man.
So also in New York, he recorded with Bessie Smith, who was like probably the biggest African-American star singer in the world. Her records had started to get around the world. Certainly the most famous blues singer. I don't think anyone was really talking about jazz singers at that time. It was like, there was jazz, there was blues, there was these new sounds, and it hadn't really been codified yet. But she was really big. And so this is a little example of their thing. And this was the beginning. Well, I'm sure he did it before this, but this was the earliest I could kind of find when Louis Armstrong was doing the wah-wah with the plunger thing, which would become super influential. It had always been done with New Orleans trumpet players, Joe Oliver and stuff. But this is Reckless Blues from 1925.
Mama
so free.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, it's a lot of
What is that?
personality coming through. It's
Like
I think
a
it's one of those-
calliope or
Yeah, I think it's a
something like that?
calliope. Yeah.
because Bessie has a lot of recordings that she was singing with something that sounds kind of like that.
Yeah.
That was like a popular
Or like
instrument.
an
It must-
air organ or
something like
yeah.
that. But man, that's a haunting and really cool sound. Also, it just with Bessie Smith here, it really highlights.
She's here?
No, with what we just heard with
gotcha.
Bessie Smith.
I got nervous.
No, man, it's like you were saying, it just highlights there wasn't as much of a distinction here. Like these all fit together. The blues is so important to what's happening, that sound. And it's not like it's just like, and this is the box of blues musicians and jazz. Like everybody's kind of drawing from the same source, closer to the source at this point. So it just fits together like this beautiful tapestry right here.
Yeah, and I think, this is was probably the first singer besides himself, and we're about to get into some Louis Armstrong vocals for the first time, 1926. Not the first time he sang, but the first time we're listening today. But where he had a vocal personality that could kind of match him, that he could really, not to say that, I mean, like Sidney Bechet for sure, we heard that probably the two best jazz improvisers of the early 20s.
Bessie Smith, again, someone we probably take for granted as we listen to now because of the language that she helped develop vocally.
Yeah.
But it's pretty special. It's pretty special.
Absolutely. And it's kind of a little bit of foreshadowing to the later 50s and Verve with Ella Fitzgerald and Louis Armstrong and their great collaboration on, Summertime and all those great records where he had this ability. I mean, like that wah wah with Bessie Smith, that back and forth is just stunning,
Okay, so I've got Sidney Bechet homework to do. I've got some more Bessie Smith homework to do. I went through a bit of a Bessie Smith phase.
And we'll have a link to this bespoke playlist on Spotify and Apple Music. And because I think that this is if you've been a little, obviously this is not an album. These were all singles, 78s or whatever they had, cylinder things even at the beginning.
Yeah, I don't know if an album was even a concept.
No, and in fact,
a long playing album.
Yeah, and one of the things, I think we're going to have some, I think I picked out some not only great tracks, but good versions. So if you want to get into, or if you've been intimidated by Louis Armstrong, well, what am I supposed to listen to? Maybe some of the famous ones, West End Blues, a little foreshadowing there. But you want to kind of know about this period, check out our playlist, because I think this goes together to really feel like the flavor that Louis brought to that decade. So we're going to jump to 1926. How are you feeling about that? This was a big year for Louis Armstrong.
I feel good. So he's 25.
That was 1925, yeah.
No, he's 25 years old.
25 years old, okay. Exactly. And so now he's, okay, so this is the other thing that happened around 1925, 26, was he went back to Chicago. He was traveling a lot, actually. I mean, in fact, we think about how hard it is to travel now. They were going to California right after this.
Several days on very uncomfortable conditions.
You go to Europe, you weren't getting on United, buddy. You were getting on a ship, most likely. We're going to get to that. He hadn't gone to Europe yet at this point. But he went back to Chicago, and this was very interesting. He didn't go back to play with Joe Oliver very much. This is when he started to put together for OK Records the Hot Fives and the Hot Sevens, which would become really the most legendary jazz band probably of all time. You can talk about the Miles Davis Quintet, you can talk about the Duke Ellington Orchestra, but you got to talk about, before any of that stuff, you could talk about Secrets, Headhunters. I know you like talking about that. But I mean, all these great things like really the
Secrets.
Hot Fives
I really do
and the Hot Sevens.
enjoy Secrets and the Headhunters, yes.
So back in Chicago, recording there, OK Records. This is Big Butter and Eggman, an excerpt from it from 1926.
Incredible title of a song, by the way.
Yeah, maybe we'll play this on the way out. That might be fun.
Yeah, let's do it.
This is his solo, obviously. Breaking up the rhythms. Chromaticism. So I think the fact that 1926, Big Butter and Eggman, the fact that these are great musicians that are playing along with Louis Armstrong, everything sounds a little dated.
Yeah.
Except for Louis Armstrong. I don't know. To me, like
He
his
sounds
solos,
contemporary.
it's so contemporary, you know. You know, the chromaticism, the trip. I mean, all these
Yeah.
little things that musicians nerd out on, but it's like, it's beyond refreshing. It's like separation from
It's
the pack,
true.
you know.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those artists where even if you haven't learned directly from him, there's a good chance you've learned from someone who's learned from him, or learned from someone who's learned from someone who's learned from him. Like his language has translated through the decades.
Yes, yes.
Through now, like to where you could play a Louis Armstrong solo in a modern context and it wouldn't sound that out of context. Like
Absolutely.
it would sound like modern.
Right, right.
Still.
Right. Yeah, he was really the bridge between like the jazz age, which was kind of a trendy thing that maybe, you know, a lot of that sound could be considered dated in a lot of ways, but like he was already foreshadowing where the music could go.
Yeah.
And then others like picked up on that, and then where he was going to contribute to taking it as well. You talk about bebop, you talk about Duke Ellington, you talk about, I mean, Duke Ellington was already doing his stuff, but Louis Armstrong was already starting to influence that through people hearing his records. You know what I mean? We're starting to get to the late 20s, more records are being, I mean, they're starting to sell a lot of records. The recording technology was super interesting too, because when they recorded these, there was a lot of pressure. It was so expensive to record, I guess buying the wax cylinders or whatever it was. Like you had to nail the first, you didn't have to, but it was strongly encouraged to nail it in one take. There was no overdubs.
Let me ask you a
There was
question.
no Pro Tools, Adam.
What's a big butter and egg? It sounds like a delicious sandwich, but
Big
I
butter
don't-
and egg man.
Yeah, what is that?
It's a big dude who likes butter and eggs, man. I don't know.
That's me. That's me. You're talking about me.
All right. So later on, 1926. Now we're gonna check out. Okay, we're gonna get into some vocals of Louis Armstrong.
He's a big butter and egg man.
He's a big butter and egg. Not a vegan. It's the opposite of a vegan.
No, he's not a vegan. He's a big butter and egg man.
Okay, heebie-jeebies. Check this out. There's a couple of great things about this track. I love this track. This is Hot Fives, Hot Sevens stuff. Louis Armstrong, Chicago, 1926. But he's bringing, well, everybody almost in the band, almost everybody was from New Orleans, but they're bringing the New Orleans flavor. Not as much collective improvisation, still some, but they've also got that Caribbean flavor, which has always been a part of the music in New Orleans. Very sophisticated kind of take. You know, there was like the French stuff, the Caribbean, obviously the street beat New Orleans stuff, the brass band, and then we're even going to get into some vocals and some scat. But check this out, the first excerpt, how they start this out. I think you're going to hear the Caribbean vibe.
Cool. Yeah. Could drive a truck through that pocket.
New Orleans tag on there. So this is Heebie-Jeebies, and this is Louis Armstrong talking about this, because this was sort of a legendary track that allegedly, when the first scat solo was ever recorded, there's a lot of controversy about that. But it's a very early one, and one of the first, certainly for Louis Armstrong, for sure. Check him out, talking about this with Dick Cavett. Ever heard of him?
Invented scat singing. Is that true?
Well, they claim when we was recording Heebie-Jeebies, and we get on to this part for the second chorus, and I dropped the paper. And the president in the control booth, he says, keep on singing, see? Well, that brought back memories when I was a kid.
Memories.
Going around in the quartet on Rampart Street in New Orleans, where we get to the part we didn't know the words. We'd go to scat and blowing like a trumpet or something like that. And it came to me just like that. And we didn't spoil the master or nothing. So when we finished, Mr. Foreign, he said, well, Satchmo, this is where scat was born. See, now he said it, but I mean, they give me that monocle, you know. But that's where scat was supposed to start, you know. But Jello Morton claimed that he and some comedian used to scat way back there in the 80s or something. But I wasn't born then, I wouldn't argue with it.
Oh, the 1880s. Got it.
Yeah, isn't that great? The 80s.
In the 80s. Yeah, you know, like when E.T. was out? Or no, the
when we were
1880s.
coming of age,
oh,
you know.
jeez Louise. Yeah, man, great to hear the New Orleans accent, because, you know,
Oh my God.
accents, they change and they smooth out over time. So there's not too many folks in New Orleans that I've talked to that sound exactly like that. It's like someone born in 1901. It's like when he said memories, that's memories. That's kind of how my grandmother would say it, even though she was from rural Missouri.
Yeah.
But she like had this like thing that we would never say, even though I'm from rural Missouri too.
Right.
I wouldn't talk like that because it's gotten smoothed out. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's great. And he's like, they give me, what did he say? They gave me that monocle. Like substituting words. There's actually like a whole linguist instead of moniker. He says monocle.
Right.
But it actually has another meaning to it too. Like there's a whole linguistic thing of like analyze, especially in New Orleans where you had a lot of like African descendantry, like with more direct lineage where there was like different cultural things, not only with food and language and stuff that were actually kept and preserved and passed along and part of the culture, But I think, the really cool thing you hear, this is him like 40 years later talking about this late 60s.
Yeah.
Very close, actually right before he passed when he was on Cavett. But he, like you hear in how he talked, how he played, like how he infused into the culture, like his personality.
Yeah.
Like you had this intersection of obviously, which the whole world saw years later, this huge personality, but you're hearing in the 20s, like it's really blooming. On the trumpet in a way that was like shocking to other musicians and had people like King Oliver, greatest trumpet player in the world, saying, keep him on second trumpet so that I can keep an eye on him so he doesn't steal my thunder,
Yeah.
But to be able to like, infuse all that and then inspire, and then it comes along with the technology and it's getting spread around the world. I mean, this stuff got really, really big. We're going to get to that a little bit. A couple years later.
We talked about this during our meters episode, but it's always amazing to me. I know you lived in New Orleans, and like whenever I'm there, you feel the music so heavy, but it's so incredible. It's not a big city,
right?
Relatively, and it's outsized influence on the culture that still resonates today, and still has this huge part. And his, like we were just talking about, his accent, like that has informed the music, which has traveled around the world.
Exactly,
you know what I mean? This accent from this one neighborhood in New Orleans from the early part of the 20th century, amazing.
So this is the rest of Heebie-Jeebies later on that we're going to listen to, what he was just talking about when he dropped the paper and started scatting.
I've got the heebies, the jeebies, talking about there's the heebie-jeebies you see, cause that boy, case it with a little bit joy.
Banjo player's cold.
You don't feel blue. Someone will teach you, come on, and do that dance. They call the heebie-jeebies dance. Yes, ma'am. Mama's got the heebie-jeebies dance. Hey, keep, guys, keep burning, keep that fire. Keep come on down.
Oh, come on.
They call the heebie-jeebies dance. Sweet mama, Papa got to do the heebie-jeebies dance.
Yeah,
dude,
it was just kind of stunning, And I think he probably really did drop it because, like, probably the only thing you remember was once he gets back, they call the heebie-jeebies, like he gets back into the lyric there. But I mean, like the authority.
So the lore is he dropped the paper, right?
Yeah.
And man.
And I mean, because like they're like, just keep it going, because we don't want to wait. Like you couldn't start a take again. You had to load up a whole thing. So that's another part of the technology that kind of intersected with an artist like Louis Armstrong that really, again, not the first improviser ever, but the first great improviser.
Man.
I think that only encouraged it to be documented. Could you imagine if it was now it's like, wait, stop, let's do it again. Like there was none of that. So it's like, who's going to rise to the top? Somebody that can come in and create something like that brings a smile to our face. And like, all these, whatever, 100 years later now, just like that in one take.
Can we get some banjo up in here too? That is killing.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I should have, actually, you know who that is?
Man, that is
Johnny St. Cyr, I think.
Johnny St. Cyr.
Yeah.
Thank you, Johnny St. Cyr.
Yeah, I mean, just
making me dance.
Go,
Yeah,
and then hitting the four. Oh,
right. Yeah, no. The
flavor.
it's
Flavor.
incredible. Like,
Yeah. Okay, so now we're still Chicago.
Might as well be Nile Rodgers. Like it's the similar thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay, so now we're moving along. We're still we're really getting to kind of the apex of the Hot Fives and Hot Sevens. Some of the tracks that are most known and most beloved. This is 1927. OK Records. This way of recording that they would do things. They were really starting to with artists like Louis Armstrong get this dialed in. These records started going getting really huge. Like this was such a new sound.
Yeah,
and,
even in the 4 years we're listening to here,
Yeah.
the technology, you can hear it developing.
Yeah.
So it's like, jazz is in its infancy, but like recording technology is in its infancy and it's developing fast.
It's developing fast, and it took people. It wasn't that they couldn't do it, but like I say, like the parts were expensive, and even like in the 23 and 22 and stuff when he's playing with Joe Oliver, supposedly like Louis Armstrong's sound was so big that he had to stand like 15 feet back, and Joe Oliver apparently didn't like that because he was kind of like, I got a big sound, but it was like screwing up. It was costing the record company money because he'd screw up it would overload it.
Yeah.
So they would just position him back further.
That's what he was
'Cause there
saying.
one microphone for the whole band.
Was that what he was saying? Maybe when he was talking about spoiling the master, like he blew it out or something, and they would have him.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So there was like pressure in there. It's like you got to come and nail this. You got to be. The mix was done physically.
Physically. Wow. As if recording isn't hard enough.
I mean, like here we are with our fancy mics and our
So
triple
comfy,
redundancy,
yeah.
our iPad where we could just. What was interesting about that, years later, maybe we could do so many episodes just on Louis Armstrong. Louis Armstrong was a huge technologist for recording throughout his career. So
I didn't know that.
I think it's because he came up at the beginning of like radio and recording technology and was kind of around the cutting edge of it because these were huge records.
And he got to live to see like multi-track recording and all that stuff.
Once he ended up in New York, lived in Queens, the same house. Actually, I want to say in the 30s. Maybe it was, again, we're not a history show. We're not a math show.
You
we're a
don't
music
say.
show. But Louis Armstrong, it's a museum now. Next time we're in New York, we're going. Me and you. We're going to
Nice.
go and hang
Okay,
out.
great.
We're going to hold hands and walk around the Louis Armstrong house.
Well,
we'll see. But the thing is, like he had an office there. His fame, like it was just a normal house in Queens in a neighborhood. He lived there even as he became world famous and everything. But he had this. He was big into reel to reel. He was early on the reel to reel thing. He used to travel with it.
Yeah.
And he would like talk to it like a journal every night. And they have these like hundreds of hours of him
amazing.
talking about his life, growing up in New Orleans, all this stuff. The archives there
Incredible.
at Queens College.
Wow.
Yeah. And he was always into like having the best hi-fi equipment. I mean, he died in 1971, so it was like the hi-fi stuff was different back then.
yeah.
Okay, Wild Man Blues, 1927. Do we need to take a breath or are we good?
No, we're good, man.
Okay,
This is
good.
great.
Wild Man Blues, 1927, still Chicago, OK Records, Hot Fives, Hot Sevens. We're getting to some, we're already at some stuff, but we're really getting to some stuff. These breaks. This is like progressive, you know?
Get out of there. Hey. It's crazy. Swings.
Johnny Dodge, there, clarinet, great solo.
There's nothing better than swing. There's
Yeah.
nothing better than swing and syncopation. There's
Yeah.
just no better human feeling in music than swing and
It's so
syncopation.
great. And it's such
what
a-
a gift that the musicians who developed that gave us.
I know, and I mean, it was definitely evolutionary. You know what I mean? Up to a point, like the groove that we call, like what you call that feeling of swing.
It's
but
just-
like something about Louis Armstrong, the way he played it as a soloist, I think made it into like revolution. Then it was evolution, and then it was like bam, and then it all kind of jumped off after that.
And if you're like listening and wondering like, oh, what do they mean by swing or syncopation? It's almost not worth breaking it down or like it's you know it when you hear it.
Right.
You know
if you
when
can't feel it, forget about it.
No, it is a feeling. Like it is.
Yes.
You could of course break it down with music theory and rhythmic notation or whatever.
Oh,
but
please,
why
let's
would you
not.
ruin something so
Let's save
beautiful?
that for the nerd nook.
No, it's not even. But it is. It is just a feeling. It is capturing a feeling that is. It's indescribable. Really, truly.
And I think for listeners, for music appreciators, which is absolutely what I consider myself first and foremost, it is a feeling. Let it resonate with you. Don't overcomplicate it. There's no secret scrolls to it.
No, just feel
it's just do bip, scoop bip, hoop. I mean, it's such a beautiful thing that he established there.
Freedom.
Yeah. Okay, 1928. We're getting sort of towards the end of the Chicago Hot Fives, Hot Sevens recording period. But we're going to introduce the first of a couple of tracks we have with Earl Hines on piano. Earl Hines, really considered, the father of jazz piano.
Ever heard of him?
Ever heard of him? Ever Hines of him? And they had some wonderful duets, some beautiful things. We're going to listen to Muggles 1928 with Earl Hines, Louis Armstrong. I think here you get with Earl Hines, kind of like with Bessie Smith, with Sidney Bechet, you start to get the intersection with the biggest, King Oliver, of course, the biggest musical personalities that could kind of at least come into his arena. A lot of the stuff that Earl Hines is playing behind him, more starting to get into accompanying, less kind of collective improvisation.
Yeah.
But I mean, Louis Armstrong, peak of his powers here, which we're going to hear he maintained for a very long time.
Again, swing and syncopation. One Nerd Nook thing that, I don't know if you have a Nerd Nook plan for our open studio members.
Yes.
Which we will, that's where we go on a little
Enter the Nerd Nook.
Nerd Nook on the music.
Enter.
But,
what?
Every single song that we've listened to so far that's been a blues form, right? A 12-bar blues form is like, contemporary blues are all like dominant seventh chords, right?
Yeah.
That blues sound from the start of the form. All of these are just a major chord.
Yes.
And then you throw in that dominant seventh, the bar before you go to the four.
Right. It's
acting
part of the flavor.
as like a second, music theory wise, like a secondary dominant is here. We're going somewhere new instead of it's all the secondary dominant or the tonic dominant now. But like it's useful.
Yeah. There's way more minor thirds that he's playing with that blue tone than dominant sevenths.
100%.
A lot of major sixes,
Yeah.
No, it's just, in his command of the instrument, you can, like sometimes we talk about technique on an instrument, and a lot of people be like, well, why was he, like they'll think about Louis Armstrong, a great trumpet player. Oh, they can play high and it's in tune. They don't even know what in tune, but it's like, what out of tune is, but you don't know what in tune is, unless you're analyzing it. But I think too, just his ability, like you can almost feel him like thinking of these ideas, and there's very little separation between the musical idea and what he can do with the instrument, like getting in the way of that.
Man.
That's kind of, technique.
1928, he's 27 years old. It feels like this is like, he's got a full handle on everything. He's got a full command of his powers now.
Yeah.
Truly.
And then, so this is 1928 as well. This is probably the most famous, and this almost made my Apex Mountain, and my Desert Island, but it didn't. But it's really great. Weatherbird, it's probably the most famous duo with Earl Hines and Louis Armstrong. It may be the most famous sort of jazz duo of all time and most beloved.
Well, there was last week's duo between me and you on the Michael Jackson episode.
That was a duel.
Duel.
A duel.
That's true. We did start it with you slapping me in the face with leather gloves and challenging me. But
it was a sparkling glove because it was Michael Jackson.
Okay. Touche.
But yeah,
well done. Give it up for Peter Martin, everybody. He's here all week.
Try the reveal. But this is great. Weatherbird, 1928 duo, and this you really hear the ragtime influence certainly for Earl Hines, but also for Louis Armstrong. Here we go. Woo. The backbeat.
Oh man, Earl Hines feel.
Oh,
unbelievable.
So little counterpoint stuff he's playing. This is a rag, actually.
Come on. Yeah.
And this is really, a lot of people say stride. This is more rag feel than stride, I would say. I mean, of course, there's stride on the left hand.
I wish I could play like that. It's amazing.
And this is super free, actually, the way Earl Hines is playing. Anyway, Weatherbird, well beloved, well loved. 1928. We're going to skip over the next couple of ones because I think that they are.
We'll save them for our categories. We got some Apex.
Yeah, that's our desert
moments. Some desert
islands
islands coming up for sure.
Still in 1928 was a big year. I think I had more tracks on this.
Maybe that's his Apex moment, 1928.
It could be. I mean, I could have picked other ones. I don't know. These were all kind of personal favorites, but I think that this was a great year. You're hearing the clarity in the recording. You're hearing, like, there's so much nuance even here from like that 1923 that you couldn't quite hear. Coming from, I mean, Louis Armstrong, like, known for the high notes, for the swing, for the incredible technique, but also just like the way he would manipulate one note. I mean, later on in the 50s, the Verve stuff with Summertime is like you hear the vibrato and going in and out. I mean, the nuance stuff, but you're starting to be able to hear that better on this.
Yeah, no, the trumpet shit is not to be ignored.
Right.
It's a real thing. The trumpet is an insanely difficult instrument to get to the level that Louis Armstrong is here. Not to mention the artistic stuff, but just we don't want to just gloss over that because I feel like trumpet nerds would come for us.
Exactly. Okay, so 1928, a little bit later, we got Tight Like This. This is a fun one. I'll just play a little bit of this stuff that he plays coming up here. I was always like, what? Very kind of like going in and out of double time.
Yeah.
Oh, it's tight like that, Louis.
This was still weird then, though, because most people worked out their solos.
Like that, Jay.
I might spit a verse here. This feels so good.
Yeah, this was just like, I feel horrible like turning it off, but we got more stuff to get to. And Tight Like This, that's a great track. I think that's one of his best solos, most inventive. Like, it's super, like, it's got all these, like, weird, like, kind of classical operatic trumpet flares.
Yeah, there's some language there, some operatic language he's taken.
And then going in and out of, like, the double time, like that the backbeat, man, it's killer.
Yeah, and the band sounds incredible, man.
Yeah.
The little trill thing.
Like this. Yeah. Okay, we're going to jump 1 year to 1929 now. This track, Black and Blue, or What Did I Do to Be So Black and Blue is the complete title, written by Fats Waller from whatever that musical was, a movie, the same one with, I guess it was Ain't Misbehavin'. But this is an important, like this.
Oh, where there's that famous footage of Fats playing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
From the same movie or musical. I apologize for not knowing what that was. I wasn't born yet. Sue me. Sue me, I don't have the internet.
I mean, it's disappointing because you are a historian.
I am a historian.
Of film and television. So
I
go
like
ahead.
to write, I'm kind of like a historical novelist, where you weave things
Some
from
fiction
real,
in.
but then they become like, I remember when I was hanging out with Fats Waller.
And Bats McGee.
Oh, Bats McGee.
Bats McGee.
And then Ron came in and he specifically asked about
come
you.
on, it slapped you with a sparkly glove. Let's go.
But this track, Black and Blue, this was the first recorded song, the first song that directly addressed racism. And it was in 1929 by a jazz musician. So this was like a very important thing. And later on, we're not going to get into we're not going to really go past 1933. But there's a lot of interesting things for Louis Armstrong as an African-American leader of culture, an international figure that became very relevant later on. But already in 1929, he was recording this. I mean, this was like Ralph Ellison in Invisible Man, which is probably his most famous novel from whenever that was, late 50s. He actually, the whole prologue is about this performance and it's weaved into the story. And it's really a brilliant thing. And Louis's nuanced reading of this, let's just check out a little bit of it. Black and Blue, 1929. So anyway, and then he sings, the lyrics great, like it's really something. Check out the whole track, it'll be in the playlist. I think that's an incredible solo that he plays anyway, and a really important track. 1930. Oh, we're also getting, like, so now he's out of Chicago, like he's going to New York a lot, he's going to California. He started to appear in movies, he started to appear on, there was no television, but it was like, it was film, whatever. And he's really getting popular, and he's beyond starting to break through, he's breaking through. But this next track, this has always been one of my favorite, and there's great footage of this, a live performance of this from like 2 years later on his first tour in Europe. This is Dinah, which was like a really popular song and was a very square song. So like this was really revolutionary, I think, the way that he sang this. And if you look at the video too, it's super cool. It's some of the first footage of Louis Armstrong.
Anyone find a self control line? Or show to me. Dino, 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 every minute, what I say we ready.
The way he's floating.
Hey.
Oh, sorry. I went through that. I wanted to go to the solo. Yeah, let me jump to the solo here. There's your dominant seven. The way he's floating out. Bebop. You heard that?
I should have pointed out some of these, but so far I've heard some things that I've heard later from Dizzy Gillespie.
Yeah,
I've heard bits of language that I've heard Dizzy Gillespie play. I've heard something from Glenn Miller, from a Glenn Miller song. I've heard something from Duke Ellington.
Yep.
That was that is part of one of Louis's solos. So it's pretty incredible. Like his contribution to the language and music.
Yeah, and then Clark Terry, Roy Eldridge, Snooky Young. Like you really hear that direct connection here that bridged it to the next. Okay, here we go. 1931. This is Lazy River by Hogi Carmichael. There's some great Hogi Carmichael songs and even collaborations that Louis Armstrong did with the great songwriter Hogi Carmichael. But check out the scat on this. This is like kind of bonkers if I can find it. I'm gonna jump up to this. Oh yeah, let me play this. This is so. Check this out.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wait, check out the next one.
Uh-huh. Sure. Uh-huh. Way down, way down. Up lazy river where the old mill runs. Meet the lazy river with the noonday sun. Linger in the shade of a kind old tree. Throw away your trouble, dream a dream of me, dream a dream of me.
Man,
Up the lazy river where the robin song wakes to bright new morning as we loaf along. Blue skies up above, everyone in love. Up the lazy river, how happy we will be. Mama, mama. Oh, up the lazy river, up the lazy river,
There you go. Come on.
And the lazy river, my long life.
check it out.
Oh, you dog.
You can hear that at the Village
Boy,
Vanguard
my
like,
river
this
is
week.
even
That's
right.
You know what I mean?
Oh,
Come on.
Of the lazy river, river. Oh, you river. Oh, you dog. Oh, you river. Look out there, Charlie Alexander. Swing out there on them Irish there, boy.
Oh man.
And there's so much, we haven't really talked about this a lot, but there's so much joy and playfulness in everything
yeah.
that he's ever done as well.
Yeah.
And it's a great reminder that this is supposed to be fun for people.
Man, I'm having fun. I mean, yeah, the intersection of joy and artistry.
Fun
with
for us
Louis
and the
Armstrong.
audience,
I know,
yeah.
and improvisation.
Yeah.
I mean, you could just feel like his whole, like everything that he did was,
Sure.
Like it was just like with confidence, but improvisation
Yeah.
and like knowing right where you fit into the thing and when you lead it, like it's exciting. Okay, so that's Hogi Carmichael. 1931. We're also getting into the period, I believe already. Yes, so this is right before he went on his first European tour, which there's a whole other like side story to this that I don't want to get into because I'm a little scared, to be honest. It involves the mafia, Al Capone, Joe Glazer, Mr. Glazer. Let me just say, Mr. Capone.
Well, I've never seen you.
I mean, come on, we're
Capitulate
we're
so
290 miles from Chicago. Louis Armstrong got so popular, like they were starting to really see the power of this music.
Yeah.
There was a lot of like
The gangsters, you mean, like the mafia?
everybody.
Yeah.
The gangsters got interested apparently because there was money to be made because
You
the
don't
people
say.
were interested in it, So they were more, but I mean, like the U.S. government was starting to like really start to worry about uprising of African Americans because of this music. They were like, they understood the power of the music. You know what I mean?
Did they? I'm sure they didn't do anything.
No, they were like, you know what? This is great for America.
Yeah.
Anyway, Louis Armstrong was moving around a bunch. He went to California. There was a lot of like, let me stay out of Chicago because certain
So
people I
awesome.
don't want to run into.
I love it, man. More of these stories.
But
These
you
are great.
needed, like when you were as big as he was in terms of like, not only popularity, but potential popularity, which you could see around the corner, you needed a dude on your side to like guide that part. It's like, I got the music. Who's going to make sure it wasn't like now where it's like, is your internet contracted? It was like, no.
Can we get our Chicago jazz gangster movie, please?
Exactly.
Scorsese, if you're watching, sir.
Right. Okay, so still in 1931, talking about Hogi Carmichael. This is not as my Desert Island or Apex, but it really could have been, and we're about to get to ours. But this is Stardust, probably one of the greatest American songs, certainly ever written. I think this might be the greatest version of it. I'm not sure. I mean, Stardust, you talk about Lush Life, Embrace. I mean, there's a lot of great songs, but this is in that group for sure. And this is just a beautiful reading by Louis Armstrong, 1931.
Incredible.
Now he's going to play with it.
Sometimes I wonder why I spend a lonely night, baby. I know, dreaming of a song melody in my memory, and I want to get with you when the love was new, always. It's an inspiration, baby. That was long ago.
Hey.
Now my consolation. It's in the stardust of a song, beside a garden wall. When stars are bright, you are in my arms, baby. The nightingale is very real. Our paradise where roses bloom. Though I dream in vain, oh baby, in my heart it will remain.
Come on.
My stardust melody.
We talk a lot at Open Studio about, like learning the melody and being true to the melody. And that's
Right.
the only thing you shouldn't mess with. But
Right. Oh my God, that's like
that's
the most
like his
beautiful
thing.
That's like the most beautifully inaccurate reading of that melody,
dude. And that's what he did with Dinah too. He
yeah.
hangs on the one note. He finds the one note that's going to be the common tone through the changes. And he just makes these subtle little adjustments going through. And the second time through, he's like a couple of different things that happen.
Right.
Incredible.
Yeah, this wouldn't be who you want to listen to if you're like, I want to learn the melody exactly how
You're
it
just
is.
going to learn Lewis's melody there.
Right. But he really was sort of like the template, the precursor to the way that jazz, like he created the template for the way jazz musicians take Great American Songbook compositions. And look, Stardust is probably one of those ones that it's like, well, you could just leave it just like it is.
Yeah.
Play it mediocre and it's such a great composition. But his harmonic, I think his harmonic knowledge and intuition was so great that he could take all that and change it. And his flavor with the lyrics that combined, that's how he's able to get away with changing and improvising the melody vocally,
Another thing I want to note here for any, if you're a musician in a rhythm section, it's really everything we've heard today. There's a lot of quarter note. And then towards the end of the 20s, you're hearing a lot of the bands emphasize that 1 and 3, letting the upbeat breathe a little bit. But they're just laying in there, right?
4 to floor.
And it gives Louis and the improvisers the chance to be free over something super solid, right?
Yes.
And that translates then later to things like Duke Ellington's orchestra, the Basie band with Freddie Green, even to the Oscar Peterson trio, and the most swinging bands you can imagine have that same relationship where there's something that's just right in there, this big wide pocket. Like I said, you could drive a truck through, and then it gives the soloist this opportunity to actually syncopate over something steady.
It leads all the way up to today. Just last weekend, you and I, 3 a.m. over on the east side, hanging out in the club. Remember? You don't remember. Okay.
I was on a lot of drugs.
I know. They were like, E. I was like, I don't know what that is. They gave me the, anyway. But I digress. Okay. 1931, 32, 30.
That's not true, honey, by the way.
That's not true. We're getting to the end, and Europe became a thing for Louis Armstrong, partly because he was running from certain Italian-American gentlemen who were part of... No, I'm just saying. Al Capone and Joe Glazer, maybe not Italian-American, another ethnicity. They were of the ethnicity of gangsters. That's what it was, from several different ethnicities.
Careful.
I don't know. What am I saying? Help me out. He loves it.
I'm not helping anything. Yeah, this is great.
He was running from the mobster, so he went to Europe.
Yeah.
But some stuff happened that was crazy because turns out Louis Armstrong at this time, 1932, had no iPhone. He was iPhone-less. Did you know that?
Yes, I assumed so.
So he didn't know. I think he was kind of shocked by the reception that he got. He did a gig in Copenhagen, which is not a huge city, There was 10,000 people at the concert. They filmed it, which was a big deal to film something at that time. He played in the UK. Incredible. Everybody knew his music. Not everybody, but a lot of people knew his music because of the records were starting to go crazy in radio. But this is Louis talking a little bit about Europe during that time.
Over there, jazz is stronger than the Masons, you know. Nightclubs, and honorary president of all of them, and wherever we play, they come in. It's like they're going to a football game.
And do you think that this enthusiasm for jazz in Europe is the reason for their great reception of you when you played over there in concert?
Sure. I mean, they have those records, every record I've made. And the minute I start blowing one, you know, there's hands and everything, you know.
And what about no problem as far as not speaking their language is concerned, Louis?
When we finish the concerts, we go to the hot clubs and the unions and sit in with the musicians there. We play Mustard Ramble the same. And we look at each other and just smile and blow. That's all. They don't get to talk.
Can you imagine being a Dutch musician and Louis Armstrong walks in and you're in a club? You must be like, oh,
Musculate Rumble? Let's do it.
Here we go.
Of course, he's talking about touring and stuff later, but I just brought that up because, you know, he toured a lot, heavy, all the way up to the end of his life. And
that's incredible.
So that takes us to 1933. And actually, let's do a little bit of Desert Island tracks, because let's jump back and do those. 'Cause I think both of ours are from 1928. Not that that matters. But.
Yeah. Let's do it. So what do you got for your Desert Island?
I got as mine, probably the most famous, obvious one, but West End Blues. Ever heard of this?
Yeah, I have. We got to get some woodbox back into the situation too.
We can maybe segue right to your apex moment.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm going to jump right to the...
No, you can't skip this, man.
I'm sorry.
You can't skip.
My bad.
The greatest.
That is great.
Tag era.
Oh, yeah.
Piano. Killing. Woo! Little substitution there.
Yeah.
So yeah, my apex moment is about to happen. So my apex moment, I think, for Louis Armstrong's maybe entire career.
Yeah, this has got to be Earl Hines on here, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Too dominant, minor to tone. Okay, I know what you did. Literally. So great.
So great. 12 seconds in music history, possibly.
So great. So great. That's a good, that's a fantastic apex.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got St. James Infirmary from 1928 as my Desert Island track.
Yeah, that's my Desert Island track.
I went down
Yours is West End.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. This is yours, sorry.
saw my baby there, stretched out on the long white table. So sweet, so cold.
By the way,
so
this is the tune we
bad.
played on the intro on the way in.
Let her go, God bless her.
Not with this feel.
No.
Wherever she may be, she can look this wide world over. She'll never find a sweet man like me. When I die,
Yeah,
want
again,
you to dress
1928.
me straight
He had something going
Yeah.
on. There was, I mean, not that he didn't later, but there was he was a real artistic blossoming point. Let's get to some categories, Peter. So what's your apex moment? We talked about mine, which is the trumpet solo in West End Blues.
I've got the solo on.
By the way,
Yeah.
sorry, if I can I'm going to repackage that.
Yes.
I think my apex moment might be the clarinet solo with Louis answering the call and
It's a
response
wah, wah, wah,
through
wah.
the piano
Wah, wah,
solo
wah.
through the trumpet
Oh,
solo.
it's not a moment. That's
can
an
I-
apex half a damn track.
It's only about 35 seconds, that whole thing. So I don't know.
It is good. It is good. Go ahead. You get a couple.
Okay,
Why not?
sorry. What's your apex
got a right to. Okay, so I got a right to sing a blues.
I
1930.
got a right to sing.
Yeah.
This is him singing the melody, but I want to jump to the solo because this is my
Great call.
apex mode. This solo, I think. Well, just check it out. It's the whole solo. This is later on in the show. The way he comes in. Come on. And then the way he floats here. This here,
Hey.
but I think my real apex is right here. It's just the freedom that he exhibits on that. It's just like he's floating there. He's not even in time for a lot of it, but when he is, and when he goes up and hits that that high note, and it's bad. I love it. Sue me. I got a right to sing the blues. 1930.
Let's get to some more categories here. So bespoke playlist title. What do you got?
So I've got the real jazz age.
The real jazz age.
Yeah,
Nice.
that's part of my pattern of the real whatever.
I'm going to go with Foundations of Jazz. Could be a bespoke playlist title. There's nothing
Foundations.
great here, actually.
That's good.
It's like,
Could you be any more generic?
I know, that's what I'm saying. It's like,
Welcome to Adam's jazz class. Today we're studying the foundations of jazz.
oh, you know, I'm not even going to say my other ones because that was my best one.
Fundamentals of jazz, perhaps?
Okay. Up next, what do you got? If this was on a streaming service, what would they play up next after this?
Well,
What would be a great choice?
Yeah, what I would think would be a great choice is a Nicholas Payton record from the mid-'90s called Dear Lewis.
Great call.
Where he does
Great
reimagined
call.
versions of this with a mini big band.
Great take, yeah.
And also Back of Town by Trombone Shorty. He didn't have Trombone Shorty stuff, but I like that record from 2010.
I don't know that one.
Trombone Shorty, fantastic trumpet player, of course known for his trombone player. But like both those artists and a number of others that I could think of from New Orleans, but Nicholas Payton and Trombone Shorty to me exude that direct connection, musical lineage with the New Orleans flavor to Louis Armstrong in a really interesting way.
I'm going to go any of the early Art Tatum
Oh, nice call. I like
singles, and then I might even go Lester Young Trio, which is the bassless trio with Nat King Cole and Buddy Rich. Coming out of this, to me, is like only because it's like you would get to hear Louis, and then you would kind of get to hear where his thing is being taken a little bit later, even before Charlie Parker. You know?
Yeah.
So
I don't know. That choice is totally baseless, I would say.
great.
Okay.
Great. He is, in fact, here all week.
Yeah.
Any quibble bits?
No. Well, just racism in the United States during that time period.
That's a big
which
one.
Continues.
Yeah, that's a huge quibble bit.
But that's not Louis Armstrong's fault. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the recording quality. I can't say.
You got any quibble bits with the Chicago Gangsters?
I mean, not
Anything you
really,
want to say
because
directly?
I mean, everything worked out where these records came out, and
So shout out.
shout out Al Capone.
All right. Snobometer.
I mean, this is either a 1 or a 10.
I think it's an 8.
It's not an 8.
I think it's an 8.
If it's an 8, it's nothing.
That's what you always say. It's either an 8 or a 9.
Tell me why it's an 8.
I feel like it's a pretty snobby experience.
Well, this playlist might be, but it's got Western. I mean, it's got some obvious Stardust. I mean, it's got some obvious stuff.
I just think if you're not a fan, like if you don't
Nobody's not a fan.
I know, but if you don't know anything about the music, right?
Yeah.
This is a steep climb because there's almost no reference point. Some of the early recordings are hard on the ears. You know what I mean? It sounds so long ago.
Yeah.
I think it's a steep climb. I think the music itself is not that snobby.
I would say,
but it's so disconnected to things that are happening now. Whereas, like when you listen to even Kind of Blue, you're like, oh yeah, that stuff is in a lot of like movies and commercials, right?
Yeah.
But this stuff isn't as much. I mean, in like movies and commercials where you hear the sound of this music.
But I would say if somebody listens to this playlist and doesn't find something out of Louis Armstrong's playing that they love,
oh yeah,
I would like. We have a friend, Sean Weil, who could drive that person up to Chicago. We have some people we'd like to introduce them to spend a weekend with in Chicago. Okay, thank you.
You just have. I love on your snomometer here. You just have question marks. You have no idea.
I have no idea.
Yeah. It's a tough call. That is a tough call for the snomometer.
No, because that's what I'm saying. It's both. I mean, I consider this playlist very snobby.
Here's another reason why I think it's incredibly snobby. Because the people that are super into Louis Armstrong are not all of them, but there are a lot of purists.
Yeah,
and there are a lot of snobby. Well, I don't listen to anything after 1933. You know, like kind of people.
Actually, that's what I'm saying. That would make it a 10. On the snobometer.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
The fact that this is a Louis Armstrong playlist with nothing after 1933, whereas if it was a 1, if it was only What a Wonderful Life.
Ella and Louis is like a 4.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like
What a Wonderful Life is a 1.
What a Wonderful World.
What a Wonderful World.
That's a 1. Linda loves that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Everybody loves it. Is it better than KOB, sir?
I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say no. For me personally, my own personal listening preferences, I'm gonna say no. Oh. I think it's amazing. Obviously,
is it better? It's not. Is for your listening. Do you think it's better?
I don't think it's better.
Or worse.
I think Louis Armstrong would be the best musician on Kind of Blue, for sure, if he was on it. But I think as a whole,
shout out Miles Davis.
I think as a whole, conceptually and all of the playing and the form of Kind of Blue, I prefer to everything that's going on around. Again, it's so disconnected for me.
And this is truly apples and oranges.
It really is. I'm not saying like I don't, of course, like, but I would love, anyway.
I would say because this is such a curated list for what I love, but I think what a lot of people would love in this period that I would say actually is better, but it's like cherry picking in a way. Kind of Blues an entire album. And this is, you know, whatever, 16 Fantastic Souls. I would say if you're just going to compare them, I would say this is better than KOB.
I disagree only because all the stuff going on around Louis when he's not playing is not as good as the stuff on KOB.
The gangster stories? What do you mean? That's even better, man. That's pretty good.
Great. Like I said, where's our film?
Well, that leads us to accoutrements. Maybe that, I said NA on this because there is no album
really nothing.
Yeah. But if the accoutrements involves the Chicago mob.
Well, all the stories and the lore, the great accoutrements, seriously, for real.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Cool, man.
You know what?
Yeah.
We've been having some reviews.
Oh, yeah. So leave us a rating and review. We have some good reviews that we've been getting recently. We want to read maybe 1 or 2 of those for the folks and shout out some folks.
If I could find it. Wouldn't that be cool?
If we find it,
give me a vamp. Give me an F7 vamp so that I can find it.
I don't have. Oh, see, now we're going to get a bunch of. This is our quibble bit.
This is. Oh, can we have nice things, Adam? Please, can we? Seriously.
Where'd you save this?
All right, Adam, we're getting back on our rating review train.
I love a rating
Now,
and
don't
review.
tune out, okay? Because this is going to be really quick, and then we're going to play. Oh, we're going to play your song, your theme song.
My theme song.
Big butter and egg, man. No, this is going to be fun. Right.
Can I get an open studio name tag that says Adam, Big Butter and Eggman?
But you're not, and not anymore.
Dang.
Okay, so the idea with this, if you want to leave us a review, you got to go to app. Got it. You have the pleasure of going to Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, whatever.
Podcasts,
you can leave us a rating on Spotify, but go to Apple and we'll read it if you leave one.
Yeah, we'll read your review live on air, like we're about to do.
This is from Zach Wolf Law,
friend of the show.
Friend of the show. Hang with Peter and Adam, not the best jazz podcast, the best music podcast. Period.
Oh, that's nice.
And then he's got a period after spelling out period. It's like hanging out with 2 old friends who just happen to have immense knowledge about piano, jazz, harmony, and jazz in general.
Did he just call us old?
Yeah, he did. These guys really have their you'll hear it stuff together.
That's an inside reference, Zach. That's old school right there.
That's old school, yeah. So anyway, please leave us a rating review. Help spread the love of the podcast. What else we got? Oh, join us at the Nerd Nook where we're going to talk about something specific. We do this every week, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
To something that we played. If you want to hear some, kind of behind the scenes analysis of what we do, become a member of Open Studio. Follow the link below. You can start a free trial. You can actually just start a free trial and check out the Nerd Nook. And
I mean, no big deal. Just
now, one big red egg man.
That's really not a big deal if you want to start right now.
Black and white.
A lot of big butter Eggman.
That's right. That's it, man.
Yeah.
Till next time.
You'll hear it.